I'm sure pretty well all y'all online can hear me. I'm not sure our sound is on today, but I have never been accused of speaking too quietly. I don't know why that is. But I want you to hear me today because I need to begin with a confession. And the confession is this. It might surprise you. It might disappoint you to know that after 9 years of college and seminary and doctoral studies at one of the top universities in the country, the Vanderbilt School of Divinity, after over 30 years of being a pastor and a preacher, some of you, on and off, I've been your pastor and your preacher for almost 2 decades. It might surprise you and even disappoint you a little to learn that after all of this, your pastor has never saved a single living soul. Now, some of you may say, well, isn't that your job, preacher? Aren't you in the business of saving souls? Doesn't it say on your business card, saver of souls? I don't have a business card. And if I did, it certainly wouldn't say that. The truth is, I've never saved a single living soul. I've never saved multiple living souls. I've never saved souls. You and I both know, when it comes down to it, there's been only one single human being in all of human history to save human souls. And his name isn't Mark Giuliano. His name is not Sandy Anthony. His name is not Julie Stone. His name is Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth is the Savior of souls. Look, I want to remind you that our job is not to save souls. Whether you're a pastor or a parishioner, our job is not to save souls. Our job is simply to lead people to a place where they might meet and encounter the one who does, Jesus Christ. Now, I don't know about all, but I have to tell you, there is something wonderfully freeing when you recognize that truth. Something wonderfully liberating when you realize that it's not your job to save souls. We don't have to convince folks. We don't have to prove anything to them. We don't have to win them for Christ. When I was a kid and my big brothers wanted me to do something, sometimes they'd sit on me. They might twist my arm, put pressure on me until I cried uncle. Until I said, okay, I'll agree. But that's not the way it is with Jesus, is it? Our job isn't to sit on people or twist their arm, convincing them to believe Jesus, or to believe in Jesus, or to believe in the power of faith in Jesus. We no more have to prove Jesus to anyone than we have to prove the existence of love. All we have to do is invite people to come and see. That's our job, isn't it? A ministry of invitation. Come and see. A ministry of, hey, you'll be welcome. Come and see. A ministry of, hey, there's something good going on here, something bigger than yourself, something bigger than ourselves going on here. Come and see. If you were to take stock of your life, I imagine you would have something of a Philip and Nathaniel story in your life. Someone who was like Philip for you, who said to Nathaniel, come and see. You heard the text today. Philip said to Nathaniel, Nathaniel, look, we've found the one whom Moses and the prophets have been talking about for a long, long time. And Nathaniel, he's a little bit like Thomas. Nathaniel, like a lot of folks in our day and age, has a good, healthy amount of skepticism, a good, healthy amount of doubt. There are a lot of people who come and promise all sorts of things, all sorts of answers, all sorts of solutions, all sorts of get rich quick schemes, all sorts of things. And so people rightfully can have a natural skepticism. And so when Philip says to Nathanael, look, we found the one that Moses has been talking about, that the prophets have been prophesying about, Nathanael responds like a lot of people in our day and age would respond. Really? Really? Really, Philip? Really? He said, yes, we found this one Jesus of Nazareth. And did you hear how Nathanael responds? He says, can anything good come out of Nazareth? That's sort of like saying, we found the next great leader for our great state of Georgia. Go Dogs! And we say, and the person who's going to lead our great state comes from old Montgomery. You can imagine someone saying, what, not Atlanta? What, not Savannah? Not Athens or Augusta, but old Montgomery? Can anything good come out of old Montgomery? That's where Nathanael is when Philip says, we found him. Jesus of Nazareth. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? And Philip has a very simple response. Philip does not sit on Nathanael. He does not twist his arm and say, I won't let you up until you believe. No, Philip says 3 words. Come and see. Come and see. Who was the person in your life who said, come and see? Maybe it was your parents who brought you to church every Sunday, sometimes kicking and screaming. No matter how late you stayed up on Saturday night to watch Saturday Night Live, they got you up in the morning and said, you got to come and see. You come into church. That was the rule in my house. You live in this house, you go to church on Sundays. Now, and I might have fussed and groaned and grumbled about it, but I actually kind of liked going. That's where my friends were. But for me, I think it was my parents and some of the people in the congregation who were always there to say, come and see, meet this one, Jesus. Maybe it was the parents of the girl you were dating who said, you want to date our daughter? You want to marry our daughter? Come and see. Come to church with us on Sunday mornings. Maybe it was someone else who said, come and see. But I suspect if you take stock of your life, somewhere you'll find a Philip was there who invited you, who included you, who challenged you to come and see for yourself. They didn't sit on you. They didn't twist your arm. They didn't come at you quoting a chapter, verse of the Bible. They didn't come at you with some great philosophy or theory to convince you. They just said those 3 words, come and see. In our family, the Giuliano family, we have a come and see story, a Philip and Nathaniel story. The story in our family might be called, what's a nice Italian boy like you doing a Protestant church like the Presbyterian Church USA? Aren't most Italians Roman Catholics? Well, many of them are, that's true. But we have a come and see story, a Philip and Nathaniel story. You see, many, many years ago, about 100 years ago, in the early 1900s, my grandfather, Emilio, and his brother, Nunzio, for whatever reason, had been kicked out of the house, turned out to live on the streets of Brooklyn, Little Italy, in old New York. Both of them young guys, 8, 9, 10 years of age. Nunzio a little bit older. What do you do when you're living on the streets of New York? A couple of young Italian kids. early 1900s, lots of poverty, little opportunity. Well, you join the gangs. That becomes your family. They joined the street gangs. They became small-time crooks and hoodlums and pickpockets and thugs of their day and age. They ran the streets. They worked together in the gangs. Until sometime in their teenage years, a couple of Baptist women from the Williamsburg Mission took them in. Oh, they didn't say you got to come and believe in Jesus. They just said, come and get something to eat, boys. Come and learn how to read and speak English, boys. Come on down to the mission and have a place to sleep that isn't on the street. Well, those women took good care of Anelio and Nuncio for quite some time. During the nights, though, my grandfather Anelio kept taking off, though. He kept running with his old gang, still causing trouble, breaking the law, until one night, Nuncio tells Anelio, look, in the evenings, they got a worship service and a Bible study here at the mission, and I've been going. And Anelio says, basically, what Nathanael said to Philip. Can anything good come out of a Bible study? Can anything good come out of a worship story, a worship service? And Nuncio says to Anelio, you need to come. Come and see. What they've got in there is good for you too. Now there's a book that was written back in the 80s or so. It has a little chapter with a little paragraph or so that talks about Anelio and Nuncio. And it says, after Nuncio said, come and see, and Anelio knew that he was recognized and known by Jesus Christ, they laid brass knuckles and switchblades at the altar and gave their lives to Jesus Christ. From that day forward, they didn't belong to a gang anymore. They belonged to Jesus. They didn't belong to the hoodlums on the streets of New York. They belonged to the church. Nuncio, as he got older, went off to seminary and became a Nazarene pastor. Grandpa Anelio, he went off to the Binghamton, New York Bible College and went to seminary, and he became a Baptist pastor. Such is the power of God when someone says, come and see. Come and see. What's a nice Italian boy like you doing in a Protestant church like the Presbyterian Church USA? Well, a long, long time ago in my family there was a Philip, only we called him Nuncio, and he said to my grandfather Anelio, come and see. Look, in my experience, and probably in yours too, more often than not, if we just invite people to come and see and then just get out of the way, Jesus will do the rest. Now, I'm not here to scold you or challenge you today, but I do want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you were a Philip for a Nathanael in this world? When was the last time you invited someone to come and see? You don't have to sit on them. You don't have to twist their arm. You don't have to convince them of anything. Just invite them to come and see, and Jesus will do the rest. He'll take it from there. Just take a look at Nathanael's first encounter with Jesus. It's fascinating. He meets Jesus, and it appears that Jesus already knows him. Already knows Nathanael at his deepest, most inner self, in his longing and his desire to know and love God. Jesus already knows that Nathanael has that longing to be in relationship with the one who is bigger than himself, a longing for peace and for shalom, a wholeness that this world can't seem to offer. Jesus sees Nathanael coming, and he says, here is a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit. And you remember what Nathanael says? He's kind of dumbfounded. All right, he's come and seen, and now this Jesus seems to know him. He says, how do you know me, Jesus? And Jesus said, I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you. I saw you under the fig tree. That doesn't mean that Jesus saw Nathanael hanging out in the shade one afternoon, sipping some fig juice under a fig. I've heard your prayers. I've heard your longing for God and for shalom. You're all good Presbyterians. You probably remember that the fig tree is quite a symbol in the Jewish world, isn't it? The fig tree is a place of prayer. It symbolizes the place of prayer, of inner reflection. The fig tree is the sign of fulfillment of God's promise for peace and shalom. All the way back to the minor prophet Micah, chapter 4, verse 4, Micah says, "They shall sit under their own vines and under their own fig trees, and no one shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken." No one shall make them afraid. When they're under that fig tree, they are drawing close to God. Jesus said, "I saw you under the fig tree, Nathanael." I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, we learned a song about the fig tree. Sundays before worship started, we had a couple of these guys in our church. They'd bring a guitar and an auto harp. And we used to call them the warm-up act before worship. They'd get the congregation warmed up with some good old singing. And one of them was this fig tree song that we loved to sing. And it goes like this. "And every man neath his vine and his fig tree shall live in peace and harmony. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. And every man neath his vine and his fig tree shall live in peace and harmony." I saw you under the fig tree, says Jesus. I saw you in that place of longing for peace and shalom. I heard you in your prayers long before Philip called you to come and see. In a sense, when Nathanael asked Jesus, "How do you know me?" Jesus says, "I hear you in your longing for shalom. I was the one who was, and I am the one who will be with you always in your longing and the fulfillment of peace and shalom." When we invite others to come and see, Jesus already knows their longing. Jesus already knows their hunger for peace, for shalom. Jesus knows they are people of our day who wake up in the morning and read the headlines in the newspaper and shake their heads and say, "Oh my goodness, what is this world coming to?" Jesus knows that. He hears that. Jesus knows that the ones we invite to come and see are people who will scroll through a social media feed and think, "There's got to be more." They're the ones who scroll through YouTube videos and say, "This world is broken. Lord, have mercy." Jesus knows that already. We don't have to sit on people. We don't have to twist their arms. All we have to do is say, "Come and see." And when they encounter Jesus, they will encounter the one who already knows their longing, already knows their sense of hope for something bigger, something greater. The one who will meet them in that place. Look, when it comes down to it, no one comes to Jesus before Jesus has already come to them. Sometimes Jesus comes as a stirring or a restlessness from somewhere deep within. Sometimes Jesus comes to them as an agitation and a longing for peace and wholeness in this world. We don't have to make the case for Christ for others. We don't have to sit on them. We don't have to twist their arms. We just need to invite them to come and see. Jesus will do the rest. You know, when my grandfather, Emilio, laid his brass knuckles and switchblades on the altar, I don't think he did it because Nuncio won him for Christ. I believe Emilio did it because deep in his heart of hearts, he recognized in Jesus one who knew him already, knew his guilt, knew his shame, knew his longing for something better in this world than what the gangs on the streets of New York could offer. Jesus knew that already, and Aeneas saw it, felt it, experienced it. And just like Nathanael, Jesus saw something in Aeneas too. Something good, something worthy of redemption, something worthy of salvation. And he offered Aeneas the promise of a life where he would no longer have to follow those who would misguide him in the streets of New York, but a world where he could lead others in the way of Christ and invite them to come and see as well. You might say, Jesus saw Aeneas under his fig tree, in his longing for peace, for shalom, to be in relationship with God. Friends, when it comes down to it, we don't have to drag someone to faith. We just tell them, if you don't believe me, come and see. Praise be to God. Amen.